Greetings everyone. Welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. I'm Mehak Chawla, art educator, Bharatnatyam dancer and disciple of Guru Srimati Geeta Chandranji. In this lecture, we are going to study about folk drama. So while individual dances highlight regional color and celebration, the theatrical dimension of folk performance reveals how communities transform dance into narrative and dramatic expression. Folk drama in India represents a powerful fusion of dance, music, dialogue, and improvisation. Often staged in open air environments such as village squares, temple courtyards, or temporary platforms. The absence of elaborate stage machinery encourages creativity in costume, gestures, and vocal delivery. Performances frequently incorporate satire, humor, moral instruction, and mythological storytelling, allowing communities to reflect upon social norms and collective concerns. A defining feature of folk theatre is direct audience interaction. Performers address spectators, invite participation, and adapt dialogues spontaneously, thereby dissolving the rigid boundary between stage and audience. These performances also function as oral archives of regional history and belief, preserving legends, genealogies, and ethical values through repeated enactment. The improvisational quality ensures adaptability, enabling folk theatre to respond to contemporary issues while retaining traditional framework. As folk practices continue over generations, receiving ritual validation, lineage based transmission, and community patronage, they gradually evolve into more institutionalized and lineage oriented systems of performance. This process leads to emergence of what may be recognized as traditional forms where continuity, codification and hereditary transmission begin to shape the identity of the art. Thus, folk traditions act as a crucial bridge between the spontaneity of tribal expression and the structured continuity of traditional and later classical systems. So, moving on to the term traditional in the context of Indian dance and drama refers to performance practices that possess his- historical continuity, community sanction, and established conventions transmitted across generations. Unlike categories that strictly define form by technique or textual authority, the idea of tradition emphasizes inheritance, continuity, and collective acceptance. A traditional performance may not always be codified in treaties, yet it survives through memory, practice, and lineage. Tradition, therefore, becomes a living bridge between the past and the present, an evolving yet recognizable cultural thread that binds communities to their artistic heritage. In Indian performing art, the traditional sphere is vast and inclusive, accommodating ritual enactments, hereditary theatre practices, temple performances, courtly entertainment, and regional preserved dance vocabularies that continue to function within their social and ceremonial environments. To grasp how tradition maintains both stability and flexibility, it is important for us to study the defining element that sustain its identity across time. A defining feature of traditional performance is in its grounding in parampara or lineage based transmission. Knowledge is often passed from guru to disciple, elder to youth, or family to family, ensuring continuity of style repertoire and aesthetic values. Unlike purely spontaneous forms, traditional practices follow accepted norms of costume, music, gesture, and performance structure, which create recognizable identity markers for the community. These conventions are not rigid rules, but shared understandings that help preserve authenticity while allowing gradual evolution. Traditional dance and drama are frequently performed in ritual, temple court, or community context where performance serve devotional, ceremonial, or commemorative purposes. The setting itself contributes to meaning. Temple courtyards, seasonal festivals, royal courts, or sacred precincts provide a social spiritual frame that shapes movement vocabulary and narrative choice. Importantly, traditional forms demonstrate a balance between preservation and adaptation. While the core identity, symbolism, and structure remain intact, performers may incorporate new themes, musical variations, or staging methods, enabling the art to remain relevant across changing times. Beyond structural features, the breadth of what constitutes traditional reveals the expansive cultural territory that this category embraces. The scope of the traditional category is broad, encompassing diverse performance systems that share continuity and communal legitimacy. It includes folk traditions that have endured over centuries, acquiring stable choreographic and musical formats while retaining regional character. It also embraced temple based ritual performances such as Bhagavata Mela of Tamil Nadu, where dance drama is inseparable from devotional practice and annual religious observances. Furthermore, the traditional sphere historically include courtly performance traditions such as early Kathak before its modern modification or codification, where hereditary performers developed refined storytelling and rhythmic techniques within royal patronage. This breadth reveals an important conceptual distinction. All classical forms are traditional because they arise from long standing lineages and cultural continuity. Yet, not all traditional forms are classical, since classical status require additional layers of textual authority, um, theoretical codification, and formally systematized technique. Tradition thus functions as the foundational cultural soil from which both folk vitality and classical refinement may grow. Understanding its scope naturally leads to recognizing why tradition holds enduring artistic and social importance within communities. Traditional dance and drama hold significance and merely as artistic expression but as repositories of collective memory, ethical values, and regional identity. They preserve narratives of mythology, local legends, genealogies, and moral teachings through embodied storytelling. Costumes, musical scales, rhythmic cycles, and performance rituals often carry symbolic meanings that connect communities with their spiritual and historical past. Because these forms operate within living cultural contexts, they reinforce social cohesion, intergenerational dialogue, and continuity to intangible heritage. From an aesthetic perspective, traditional performances demonstrate a harmonious coexistence of discipline and flexibility. Technique is guided by inherited norms, yet improvisation and contextual responsiveness allow performers to engage contemporary audiences without uh, keeping in mind of the roots. So, this dual quality, stability, combined with adaptability, explains the resilience and longevity of traditional art across centuries. When the enduring continuity of tradition begins to interact with systematic theory, textual validation, codified technique, and articulated aesthetic philosophy, performance practices gradually move toward what is recognized as the classical domain. Thus, traditional forms serve as the essential continuum that links the organic spontaneity of folk and tribal expressions with the refined intellectual and philosophical frameworks of classical dance and drama. Classical dance and drama in India represent the most systematized and philosophically articulated layer of the performing art tradition. These forms are not merely mode of entertainment or cultural celebration. They are comprehensive aesthetic systems grounded in textual authority, codified technique, and spiritual philosophical intent. The classical domain emerges when performance transcends spontaneous community expression and acquires an organized theoretical base supported by treatises such as Natya Shastra, attributed to Bharata Muni, and later Abhinadarpana, attributed to Nandikeshwara. So these texts provide structured framework for gesture, movement, abhinaya, stagecraft, and emotional integration, establishing dance and drama as disciplined art forms governed by aesthetic philosophy rather than solely by custom or locality. Classical performance traditions are further sustained through institutional recognition, pedagogical systems, and the Guru Shishya Parampara, where rigorous training ensures continuity and refinement across generations. The classical sphere therefore represents the confluence of theory, practice, lineage, and patronage, resulting in performance traditions that are both intellectually grounded and artistically sophisticated. To appreciate their depth, one must observe the technical and aesthetic structure that distinguish classical performance from other categories. So, a defining feature of classical dance and drama in their codified technical vocabulary, which is movement, is classified into anga, major limbs, upanga, the minor limbs, and pratyanga, ensuring precision and anatomical awareness in execution. So, in angas, we can see the hands, legs, and upangas are the eyebrows, cheeks. So these are the upangas. And pratyanga is when in Kathakali mostly pratyangas are used. So the gesture systems such as hasta mudras, body postures or eye movement and rhythmic footwork follow established conventions that can be studied, replicated and evaluated. This codification allows for stylistic consistency while also permitting individual interpretation within defined boundaries. Another essential principle in the pursuit of rasa, the aesthetic essence or emotional flavor experienced by spectator. Classical performance aims not only to display technical skills but to evoke refined emotional states through the interplay of bhava, abhinaya, music, and rhythm. Repertoires such as structured, these are structured into clearly defined segments, invocatory pieces, pure dance, sequences, expressive narratives, and concluding items, creating a coherent artistic journey rather than an improvised sequence of movements. Continuity and antiquity are also crucial markers. Classical forms demonstrate historical depth, textual reference, and sustained practice over centuries, often supported by royal courts, temples, and later cultural institutions. Costume, music, stage design, and performance etiquette follow recognizable norms that contribute to a unified aesthetic identity. These principles find diverse expression across regional schools, each contributing a unique stylistic identity within a shared theoretical framework. India's classical dance landscape encompasses several distinguished traditions, each with unique stylistic features yet unified by shared theoretical foundation. So, if we look at Bharatnatyam, this dance form is from Tamil Nadu and is being characterized by the geometric precision, strong footwork, and the balance of nritta and abhinaya. Moving on to Kathak from North India of Uttar Pradesh. This dance form emphasizes rhythmic virtuosity, the fast spins, and the narrative gestures. In this, the dancer is known by the name of Kathakar. They tell the story, they are the storytellers, and is being influenced and performed in temples and the court. The court has influenced the term a lot. Moving on to Odissi. This dance form is from Odisha and is noted for its sculptural poses, body alignment, and lyrical fluidity, which derive from temple iconography. Kathakali from Kerala. It represents an elaborate dance drama tradition marked by dramatic makeup, stylized gestures, and epic storytelling rooted in mythology. Manipuri from Manipur. It embodies devotional grace. It's soft, rhythmic, and lyrical, had fluidity. If you look into Kuchipudi, the dance form from Andhra Pradesh, this dance blends brisk footwork and expressive characterization, usually done on the brass plate, which is the last piece of the repertoire. Then Mohiniyattam is from Kerala and it is being distinguished by the swaying movement, the soft movement, and the feminine grace, and the abhinaya, and it's very slow paced. In between, it becomes fast, yes, but mostly fluidity is the main essence of Mohiniyattam. Look into the Satriya now from Assam that integrates devotional themes, precise footwork, and narrative elements which are rooted in Vaishnavite philosophy. So each of these forms reflects regional aesthetic while adhering to overarching classical principles of codification, lineage, and rasa. Beyond dance vocabularies, The classical spheres also extend into theoretical tradition that integrate poetry, gesture, and narrative philosophy. Classical drama in India finds a literary and performative foundation in Sanskrit theatre, exemplified by playwrights such as Kalidas, Bhas, or Sudraka, whose works integrate poetry, music, gesture, and moral philosophy. These dramas established enduring conventions of plot, structure, character, typology, and emotional progression. Among living theatrical tradition, Kudiyattam of Kerala stands as one of the oldest surviving Sanskrit theatre, which is recognized internationally for its antiquity and ritual continuity. Dance drama systems such as Kathakali and Yakshagana further illustrate how classical principles can merge with regional performance idioms to produce elaborate narrative spectacles combining music, dance, costume, and dialogue. These traditions demonstrate the adaptability of classical frameworks across linguistic and cultural contexts while maintaining aesthetic discipline and symbolic depth. Now, having observed the structured and repertoire, attention naturally turns to the broader philosophical and cultural implications of classical performance. Classical dance and drama serves as repositories of philosophical thought, spiritual symbolism, and artistic discipline. They embody the synthesis of body, mind, and emotion, transforming movement into a medium of metaphysical exploration and cultural continuity. The emphasis on training, textual study, and lineage ensures preservation of intangible heritage, while the pursuit of rasa elevates performance from mere display to a transformative aesthetic experience. Through structured pedagogy and institutional support, classical forms continue to evolve while maintaining continuity with their historical roots. When viewed within the wider spectrum of Indian performance tradition, classical dance and drama represent the culmination of a continuum that begins with tribal ritual expression, expands through folk vitality, and stabilizes through traditional continuity. The classical domain does not stand isolated. Rather, it refines and systematizes the energies, narratives, and symbolic vocabularies that originate in community based practices. Understanding this continuum reveals how Indian performing arts are interconnected layers of cultural evolution rather than separate or hierarchical categories. Indian dance and drama do not exist as rigidly separate categories. Rather, they function within a continuous cultural spectrum shaped by time, geography, community interaction, and aesthetic evolution. The terms tribal, folk, traditional, and classical are analytical frameworks that help in understanding origin, stylistic features, and social functions. Yet, in lived practices, these forms constantly influence one another. Performance traditions in India grow organically from community rituals and everyday life, gradually acquiring structure, continuity, and eventually theoretical refinement. This dynamic progression demonstrates that Indian performing arts evolved through adaptation, assimilation, and reinterpretation rather than through abrupt transformation or hierarchical superiority. Understanding this interaction requires acknowledging a process of growth that is not based on hierarchical ranking. A crucial concept in studying Indian performance tradition is the idea of a continuum rather than a hierarchy. So, tribal forms often represent the earliest layer emerging from indigenous ritual practices closely tied to ecology and survival. As communities settle into agrarian and village cultures, these expressive movements gradually evolve into folk traditions that reflect social life, occupations, and seasonal celebration. With sustained practice and lineage based transmission, folk expression gains stability and become traditional forms carrying established conventions and ritual sanction. When tradition intersects with codified theory, textual authority, and articulated aesthetic philosophy, performance system acquire the characteristics associated with classical arts. This progression of tribal, folk, traditional, and classical does not imply superiority or replacement. Instead, it illustrates cultural layering and mutual coexistence where earlier forms continue to survive and nourish later ones. Each category retains its independent vitality while simultaneously contributing to the broader artistic ecosystem. This layered existence naturally results in artistic exchange among forms. The interrelationship among these forms is marked by continuous exchange of movement vocabulary, themes, music, and narrative structures. Classical dance traditions frequently draw rhythmic patterns, regional motifs, and kinetic energy from folk and tribal sources, enriching their choreographic language. Folk theatre, in turn, often incorporates mythological narratives, ethical symbolism, and emotional frameworks derived from classical literature and aesthetic theory. Tribal rituals and community dances continue to inspire contemporary choreographers and performers who reinterpret indigenous gestures and spatial patterns within modern or classical compositions. So, this interaction reveals that Indian performance traditions are dialogic rather than static. They communicate across social strata and historical periods. Costume elements, musical scales, storytelling techniques, and stagecraft frequently migrate between forms, demonstrating that boundaries remain porous and fluid rather than fixed. With this, I conclude my lecture. Thank you.